Alright, so Fallout 76. Well, it's gained a lot of talk over the last couple of days, especially for the supposed multiplayer leak. Well, most of the Fallout YouTubers, at least the larger ones, have seemed to have come to the conclusion that it is either an MMO, like Elder Scrolls Online, or it is a game like Borderlands, that is mostly single player, but you can do co-op. Now, what I have not seen from any of the larger YouTubers is for them to compare it to a game like The Division, the game you're seeing in the background. The Division is a post-apocalyptic shooter RPG looter thing. In recent times, we've seen a rise in these multiplayer looters. Not as much as the Battle Royale, but there have been a rise in them. To name a few, we have The Division, obviously, Shadow Warrior 2, Destiny, Destiny 2, the upcoming Anthem, Warframe, The Division 2. These are kind of MMO light games, I would call them. I mean, obviously they're called looters already, but they're sort of like MMO lights, because you still queue for dungeons. You still queue for PvP while you're in an open world. Or semi-open in some cases. Now think about it. Fallout and its style of game kind of fit this type of genre pretty well. I mean, Fallout has an established open world. Every Fallout has had an open world. Fallout 1, 2, Tactics. Brotherhood of Steel, I think, is open world. I haven't played it recently. Or maybe it's semi-open. Fallout 3 is an open world. Fallout 4 is an open world. Fallout New Vegas is an open world. Fallout Extreme wasn't going to be an open world, but that game never came out, so... And I don't think Van Buren was an open world either, was it? I think it was semi-open. I'm trying to think of all the canceled Fallout games. And, yeah. So, we also have large amounts of lore in Fallout that you can... places to explore, tons of stuff that can be easily turned into dungeons for this type of looter, We have a large amount of strange factions. I mean, think about The Division. We have what? The good faction. We have the rioters. We have the cleaners. We have the people who broke out of prison, and we have the PMC Last Man Battalion, right? So think about for Fallout. Obviously, we have what? Raiders, Enclave, Brotherhood of Steel, Minutemen, the Gunners, the Forged, even though they're more or less just raiders. We have tons of factions. Oh, there's one really cool one in Brotherhood of Steel. If you've never played Fallout Brotherhood of Steel on like the PS2 or the Xbox, it's not a terrible game, but there's one faction. I mean, it's bad, but it's not terrible. It's like a 7 out of 10 game. But there's one faction, I think, called like the Lost Ones, or like I forget what they are, but they're like ghouls that like worship a vault. And it's really cool, and it's like the main leader ghoul is like a ghoul that's like as big as a super mutant. It's crazy. You need to play that game. Like, even though it's not great, it's still fun. Just to see where Fallout was going before Bethesda. Next, we have, tons of weird enemies to fight. As I mentioned, there's tons and tons of weird enemies within Fallout's lore that can be put into this game. And, and with this type of game, if it is, this open world looter, Fallout's that type of game where you can add anything, really, and someone will say, yeah, it's the radiation, it was genetic experiments, FEV, oh, it was the old gods, which appear in Fallout 3 and 4, so you can do tons of stuff, you can do tons of enemies, tons of different enemies. Next we have lots of weird weapons and armor. Think about it. Think about how many weapons there are between Fallout 1, 2, Tactics, Brotherhood of Steel, 3, New Vegas, 4. Tons and tons of weapons. Tons of plasma weapons, laser weapons, regular weapons. Like, tons and tons of stuff, to add. The armor. Obviously, we have, like, simple stuff like leather armor, old riot armor, which that's always, like, I liked wearing in Fallout 3. I always thought it looked cool to wear, like, the old riot armor from the vault. We have power armor, several different types of power armor, like T45, T51, T60, XO1, XO2, Hellfire armor, Midwest Brotherhood steel power armor. Fallout Brotherhood of Steel has like Volt Tech power armor. There's tons and tons of power armor could be added. Raider power armor, Tesla power armor. It's crazy. So if this game really does have multiplayer and it's not an MMO, I have to say it's a multiplayer looter. It really makes sense that it would be this type of game that can focus on the story. Still have that story elements, but still have the multiplayer too. And not be an MMO to compete with Elder Scrolls Online, because companies don't compete with themselves usually. You don't want to compete with yourself. That's different for the car industry, I know, but mostly in games, you don't release a game to compete against yourself, because that just means that one of them is probably both of them are going to be hurt by it. Like Call of Duty doesn't release really two Call of Duties in the same year separately. I know what they did with Infinite Warfare and Call of Duty 4 remastered, but you had to buy them together. See, why do you think they did that? Because they didn't want to compete with themselves. The next question we have to ask is, what are Bethesda going to do to add to the looter genre to have appeal over the other multiplayer looters that are coming out? It will have to compete against what? The Division 2 is coming out, Anthem. What else is a looter? Destiny 2, because that's still getting DLC, so that's Activision's current one. I don't think they've announced or are going to announce Destiny 3. So there's going to be competition if this is a looter, and Bethesda would really need to find what's going to make theirs unique. I know there was something about base building, but unless that has something to do with the PvP area, I don't know. I don't think that's going to be a big selling point. Obviously, like, EA is just going for graphics with Anthem. Maybe there's good story. I mean, obviously it's BioWare, but I think they're just going for graphics. Ubisoft, with The Division, the big selling point of The Division was the Dark Zone. So I have no idea what they're going to do with The Division 2. And I guess they also would be competing with Warframe. So maybe Bethesda is going to make a Dark Zone copy. That'd be kind of neat, maybe. I mean, a big area where you're going to have like tons of NPCs and players all duking it out. Maybe that would work, I don't know. It really depends on, maybe you join a faction. Maybe that's what they're going to do. They're going to have a factioned off Dark Zone. Oh, I'm part of the Gunners. Okay, let's go into the Dark Zone. Oh, there's Minutemen. Okay, do we want to engage them? Or do we want to go fight those super mutants? That's just an example. Or you could be like Brotherhood of Steel, and there's there's Institute Sense. But you're in the Dark Zone. It's like, okay, do we want to do this? Do you want to engage in that? Do we want to risk losing some of stuff for our faction? I don't know. This is all just speculation. I mean, Fallout 76 could, for all intents and purposes, be an online dating game. Alright, bye. Tell me what you think about Fallout 76. I think it's going to be a looter, a multiplayer looter. If it's not at E3, come back to this video and comment donkey farts. I don't know. Alright, bye.